Hello, beautiful Her Drive viewers and listeners. Welcome back to another episode where we are diving into the story of Petia Kolibova-Burns. She is an intuitive business mentor for female entrepreneurs, and I'm very honored to have her. Welcome, Petya. How are you?
I'm so excited to be here today. Thank you so much for having me. It's like the happy start and happy ending of my day, and it feels so good. So, really excited to be here today.
Oh, that's really sweet. Well, let's dive in. And first, we'll just start with what is an intuitive business mentor?
I love that question so much. And I really love that you are diving into your episodes a little bit differently versus me spending here 30 minutes talking about my past. I love this so much because we can dive into who I became and what I am creating now. And it's funny. This morning I was recording my solo podcast episodes and I was talking a little bit about my journey because people don't realize when they look at us where we are today that there was a prior, that there was a struggle too. And very often the people who you are seeing successful, they went through their own doubts and fears and, challenges. And when I'm looking back, I honestly never wanted to be entrepreneur. I really never wanted to be that because the example of what I have seen is sacrificing your health, sacrificing your family, sacrificing just living and prioritizing business and growth and money. And I never wanted to be like that. But 7 years ago, when I was fired from my corporate, quote unquote, I became an entrepreneur by accident, if I would believe in accidents. I truly feel we are always divinely guided, whether we like it or not, because when we're not listening, we are going to be kicked in our booty to start shifting who we are being and what are we doing. And so I started my first business in social media marketing. And I realized that doing everything for others, like I was doing everything for my clients, their captions, their pictures, their videos, their engagement, everything, they disconnected. But what I have saw when I was working with them on their mindset, on their energy, now they started to be deeper connected, created a beautiful opportunities. And in my business, when I started to focus more on me, on who I came here to be, what are my gifts, working on deeply knowing myself, and I did it through human design and breath work and kundalini activation process. I went so much deeper in me that I realized the business, it's not just a strategy and how to make more money and how to, do things. It's about reconnecting to yourself. Your business, it's amplification of who you are. It's an extension of who you are. So when I started to growing and when I started to trust my intuition, that's when I really felt on purpose. That's when I didn't feel like waking up to work that I have created for myself. Because sometimes we want to be entrepreneurs and we don't realize that when you work for yourself, there is no lock on the weekend. There is not like, oh, let's turn on and off in business. Even though I like doing it energetically, I just open and close my business energetically because I work from home. So I get to do that. But when I started to connect to my intuition, my business started to be growing. I started to be growing and I started to feel more on purpose and more fulfilled. So it didn't felt like another thing to do to create more money. It started to feel like my vision is coming to life. And so that's when I became intuitive business coach because when I created multiple six figures in my business, I'm like, more women get to do this. Like we can have it all. And when I say have it all, it's not this cliche like, like just wish for it and it will happen. All that matters to you. The things that matter to me might not completely matter to you, or you might have a different visions for yourself, different dreams. But whatever you deeply desire and deeply want to call into your life, you can. And that's what I'm really helping women to do, to bring their visions into life. And the women that I'm working with, they're helping other people. They're supporting other people through their products, through their services. So I truly feel that I am creating this beautiful ripple effect of women who are abundantly paid for their gifts, who are stepping into their truth, who are unapologetic, who are feeling fulfilled and not just they're chasing next client, next sale. It is so much more fun for all of us. And I feel like when we can tap into that energy, we're helping to make a world a better place because you're not stressed, you're not rushing, you're not chasing. You're in that, like you said beautifully before we start recording, in that Zen vibration. You shift your perspective and your priorities. And when you shift and when you change, the world around you changes too. And isn't that why we are all here?
Mhm. Beautifully said. And I love the way that you articulated how you are very much in the intuitive space. And I think a lot of female listeners will understand what that means, but those who don't truly understand intuition in a bigger way, like, can you dive into that a bit more?
I love that you're going there because, like you said, like sometimes we assume because it becomes a second nature for us and we don't even think about it, it just comes naturally. So, being in that intuitive space, each and every one of us was born with this. We as human beings, we do have an intuition. It is that for each and every one of us, it's going to be a little bit different. And that's why, love teaching about human design, because the intuition that we are feeling, it's going to be in a different places for each of us. It can be in your sacral, it can be in your gut, it can be this instant knowing. I'm a sacral generator, which means in human design that my truth is in a moment. For me, when you ask me yes and no questions, it's how I get clarity the best. That's how I work the best. That's how I can create the best. For some of us, it can be emotional intuition. So it is going to be in your solar plexus, and you're going to get to wait it out what feels right for you. You can have a splenic intuition, which means that you will have this inner voice. It's like a gentle whisper that you get to learn to tune into and listen. So you get to know yourself first. That is the most important thing. And two, how I help my clients to really start trusting their intuition even before they know anything about human design is get into the quiet place, because sometimes we are so busy, we are in our head, we are going, rushing, 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 checking off the next thing of our to-do list, right? Listen, me too sometimes. And that's why I know how important it is. Even if it's just like 5 minutes for yourself, and you can do it even multitasking. Imagine that. I love doing it in a shower. I sit in the shower, and that is the space where I cannot have my phone. Even though they say like it can get wet, I'm not going to be the one testing it. My husband probably would, because he loves testing and experimenting things. But I'm like, nope, I'm out. I have my shower notes there where I can write down my inspired ideas. But it's a place where I'm uninterrupted. Usually, whenever little one was little, I'm like 2 minutes shower was like what I could get. Now it's so much better when she's 13 months. But those are the spaces you get to create a space. Whether you sit in your favorite furniture and make yourself hot tea, or whether you are sitting in a shower, create a safe space where you can have few minutes uninterrupted for yourself and tune in, which means just close your eyes. Close your eyes, go within. Don't let the outside inputs distract you and take you to a different places and take you back into your head. Just sit down and gently close your eyes and start connecting to your breath, and really ask yourself, where was the time in the past where I had a feeling or something was moving me? And we all have those feelings. I shouldn't do this. I should drive there. I should ask this person. I should talk to this person. I should text this friend. Or you're talking or thinking about the friend, and friend suddenly calls you and you didn't talk with them for a month. This is all energy and intuition guiding us. So we all have it innate inside of us. We just get to learn to use it. We just get to learn to listen to it again. Because when we listen, we're going to be guided with it. It's that place from within. Instead of listening to everybody else, instead of tuning into everybody else's energy, tune back into yourself. When was the times when you have some intuitive knowing, something was moving you to do or don't do something, and you have listened? Where did you feel it in your body? And it worked out. Where did you feel it in your body? What happened after you listened to it? What was that feeling of success or satisfaction or deep knowing, right? Now, you can write it down if you can. If you're in a safe space, don't do it in a car, please. You shouldn't be even closing your eyes in a car, please, by the way.
Yeah.
But if you can, write it down and then just like, take a few deep breaths again, recenter, and just ask yourself the question again. When did I have intuitive knowing? When was I moved to do something or don't do something and I didn't listen and I regretted it? And I wish I would. Like when you know that this partner it's not good for you or this job it's really not good for you and you're taking it just because you want to pay your bills. When was that inner deeper knowing like, oh, this doesn't feel right, and then it wasn't the right?
Mhm.
Where did you feel it in your body and what happened when you had that intuitive knowing and you didn't listen?
Mhm.
So this is just really like starting to listen, starting to reconnecting to that inner knowing that each and every one of us really have. Does this answer your question?
I believe so. And I love the exercise of location, right? Um, and while you were speaking, I had some hits of like, oh, this is exactly where I hear it. And it made me think of a meme when I saw recently and about when we don't listen. And it basically the meme said, I told you so. And then it was like a little dash, your intuition, right? Like,
Yes.
and I love that feeling because I've had the moments of I told you so, see it all worked out. And then the big I told you so's from a very loving space of see, I told you not to go down this path or to go specifically in the past with dating. Like, told you this was a bad idea.
Mhm.
But there's no shame, right? We just explored an option, right? Yeah.
And I love that you're bringing this up because like if we're shaming ourselves or shooting ourselves or guilting ourselves, where is this going to really take you?
Mm-hmm.
I love to ask myself, like, what was the gift in this? What did I learn? And what would I not want to experience again? And what would I want to experience instead? So instead of, like you said, instead of just shaming ourselves and making ourselves feel bad, which, let's be honest, we are brilliant in that. We are usually our worst critics, aren't we? Like the way we're talking sometimes to ourselves, we would never talk to beloved one or our best friend.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just like check in and it's more of like reflecting and inquiring and creating something even better. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. Well, I would love to dive a little bit into your story about, previous you and the now you. I think that helps humanize our teachers and leaders a little bit. So if you feel comfortable, I'd love to hear a bit more of like your transition from past to present.
I love that. And I truly love how deeply like aware you are of where people are, where your listeners are, and how we get to really humanize the brands, the peoples, the leaders, the coaches, the mentors. Because like I said at the beginning of the recording, sometimes it's so easy to look at others and just put them on a pedestal. It is so easy for women to now look at me or my clients or people who are, listening to me on a podcast and say like, well, good for you. You're in loving relationship. You have a beautiful daughter. You have built multiple six-figure business. You have top 2% podcast. You've traveled the world, hosted and, sold out your international retreats, sold books, become a bestseller. It is so easy to look at these things and say, well, good for you, Petya, but what about me? I'm still sitting here. I'm still trying to figure it out. And let me tell you, we still all are. There is no getting there, girl. Like once we're like, oh, I figure it out. Like before I like a couple of years ago, before I started to like thinking about like, getting pregnant and have babies, I was like, oh, I figure it out. I have multiple 5-figure months. This is easy. I'm living in Mexico, I'm hosting retreats. This is what I will be doing for the rest of my life. And then I planned a different way of living and I freaked out. And how am I going to do this? How am I going to be wife and mother and entrepreneur? Like I completely like went from scratch and I had to rebuild myself. And I feel like we keep rebuilding ourselves. And I had to, because the girl you are seeing today, it's not the girl who was born 40 years ago. I was born in very small town, in very small country with unpronounceable name. You did great though, Cynthia. You did amazing today. Most people have a struggle to even pronounce my name, and forget it, like even know what small country and small town I'm from. And when I was growing there, it was a very small mindset. People were living for a weekend, drinking their brains off. I saw it firsthand with my grandfather, with unpresent biological father who left us when I was 2 years old. My mom got remarried when I was five. My stepfather was very physically and mentally abusive, which led me into not trusting myself, not knowing who I really am, harming myself with eating disorder, cutting my body, just really being disconnected. And honestly, back then I felt like I'm a mistake. I shouldn't be here. I'm just a waste of space. And it led into eating disorder that it started when I was 11. Now that I have a daughter who is 1 year old, I cannot imagine her going through the things that I went through. And that's why we want to better. That's why we become better. But back then, I just couldn't see myself living better. I saw other people succeeding and I thought like, well, good for them, not for me. And honestly, it's still something I'm working through. Like I have created success in my life, but now that I'm upgrading and I see like my mentor making 100K in a month, being mama of three little ones, I'm like, how is that possible? Like she can do it, but I cannot. Like I cannot see myself making 100K months. So I get to work through those limiting beliefs again. Back then, that little girl, she was so disconnected and so scared to save, like take up any space, that I was starting with myself and then binging and purging with eating disorder. And when I was 18, ran away from home and I tried to take my own life, because I was like, if this is life, I don't want to live this. And it took me 30 years of struggling, 30 years of not knowing who I am and trying so hard to fit in and outsourcing my worthiness and outsourcing my happiness. And, for some of the listeners who are listening, if they're into astrology, I learned about it just a few years ago, but there is a point in our lives around 28 or 29 years old, the Saturn in return, when usually everything crumbles. Like all your life shadows. It's a huge teacher who is going to shed a light on the things that don't belong in your life anymore. So, in that time, I started to work on myself, started to work on my eating disorder. I was getting divorced because my husband was narcissist and who was cheating on me. So everything crumbled. And then I got fired from my corporate job, and just like all that thinking and all those old paradigms of security, like go to school, get married, get the job, make the kids, thank God I didn't have kids with my ex. He's not that person. He's just not person for me, I was just settling my whole life. And so when I was around 20, 29, I was back in a dark space when I was feeling depressed and I had so much anxiety about everything, about life, job, even driving. I was terrified to be driving. And so I started to Google, and this is like over a decade ago, when it wasn't as easy as having these beautiful podcast episodes as you're offering and having a safe spaces online that we have more so now. Over a decade ago, I was just like Googling and looking at YouTube, like how to be happy, how to stop suicidal thoughts, how to overcome eating disorder, how to be happy in a marriage, and thank goodness I found Louise Hay and Hay Publishing. And then thanks to her, I found other teachers like Gabby Bernstein, Dr. Wayne Dyer, Joe Dispenza, Tony Robbins, and all these people became my online mentors. And I started to brainwash myself because the thoughts that I was having in my head were terrible and hurting me. So I needed to shift that. I needed to change that. I needed to step into something better. And the most important thing, I had to step into the belief, if they could do it, I can do it. And that's what started to shape who I am today. And it took me over a decade, and I'm still on a journey, and I will forever be until my last breath. Because no matter how much you grow, no matter how much you achieve, no matter how much you get, no matter how much you manifest in your life, you will always be expanding and growing, and life will be inviting you to grow with it. Because if we're not growing, we're dying. And I felt most of my life, Cynthia, I was dying. So that's why I am who I am today. And it's changing every day. And I'm challenging myself every day to keep growing, to keep expanding for myself, for my family, but also for my clients. I know that my clients look up to me because I embody the desires they desire. They want a loving relationship. They want to have a healthy relationship with their bodies. They want to live a life of plenty and overflow, whatever it means like to them. I know when I started my business, India, like overflow and plenty and being rich was making $3,000 a month for me. Now I had to 10 time it. Because of who I grow into and my team and my family, and because I retired my mama and I want to buy her house and I want to have several properties because I want to inspire women into what is possible when you step into your truth unapologetically. So I had to expand and I have to hold that vision.
Wow, that's so beautiful. Thank you. I receive everything you just said. And I love that you mentioned the constant expansion, right? The constant desire to grow for more, 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 more. And it's not necessarily this, what is the phrase I want to use? Like just this vacuum that's just trying to suck in more for the idea of just having more and to fill some sort of void within. It's actually a very healthy expansion.
Mhm.
And I would love if you could perhaps articulate the difference between the two, like what that the hungry ghost feels like versus the glorious divine expansion.
I love the description. I just really love the way you have with your words. I'm curious, do you know your human design?
Yeah, I'm a generator.
Love
Yeah.
that. You're really brilliant with your words. I was like feeling into if you're a projector because you have a lot of wisdom to share. So, going back to your question, and I love it so much because when we are going through outsourcing our worthiness, when we are focusing on the outward, no matter how much success you will create, it's never going to feel enough because you're not feeling enough. It's like this hunger for more. I want to have a bigger car. I want to have more clients. I want to have more money. I want to have more kids. But it's coming from like my life, it's not enough. I need more so I can feel more. And from that place, you will never feel satisfied. Because as soon as you get what you desire, and I know it very well because I have done it for most of my life, I have done it when I was feeling like, oh, when I finish my, bachelor's, I will feel worthy. And then I'm like, okay, now I get to get my master's. And I got my master's. And then, like, nothing changed because I didn't change. I was thinking, like, oh, I will have my master's and I will have the perfect job and I have the money and I will feel happy. And I wasn't. Like, when you're creating space from not enough, then it will never be enough.
Yeah.
But when you're creating from place of gratitude and plenty, because you already, if you're listening to this episode, you're listening it on some device. And I'm willing that you have some clothes to wear and food to eat. And this could be like extremes to compare, but I was in places when I didn't have these. When I ran away from home when I was 18, I ran away from literally, and to translate, it was like $10 in my pocket. That's all I had. And I was like couch surfing, I think you call it here in the United States, like staying with the friends and staying for a few days here and there and going to school. And I even stayed with my teachers. So I have a place to sleep. I didn't have money for food. I was eating in my friend's house, in my teacher's house. So I know what it feels like. But when we are creating from a place of plenty, when we can celebrate, what do we have? Can you see? Can you feel? Can you walk? Is there a hope for you that tomorrow can be better? Can you just get one day at a time? Can you take it one moment at a time? When you're creating from place of knowingness, and the knowingness means like, I know there is more, but the more is coming from place of gratitude and expansion, and it's a soulful success. And this is something I'm teaching. I wrote a books about it, I had a summit about it, I'm starting a coaching mentorship, group coaching mentorship about it. The soulful success fills your soul. It's a hunger that gets satisfied. It's not even hunger, it's like, wouldn't it be nice? It's like this craving, like, I would love a pineapple. And you go and you know you can get the pineapple, right? It's not like, like, I wish I could have this, but I don't think I can have it. I don't think I'm worthy of it. I don't think, like, I see other people eating pineapple, but I'm not worthy of having a pineapple because it's sweet and juicy. And I don't think I can have sweet and juicy things. So I know it can be like, extreme analogy, but like, you see what we are doing to ourselves?
Yes. Oh my gosh, that really landed the plane for me. Yeah.
And
Oh,
I have never said this before, and I never used this analogy before. It's for here, and it's for today, and it's for us, and it's meant to be felt. And honestly, like, I literally could feed the juicy, I could feel the juicy pineapple in my mouth.
I know. I have some in the fridge. I'm like, oh my God, when we're done, I'm gonna have that juicy sweetness and like think about all the other juicy sweet things I want.
Yes. And it's like co-creating with God, source, universe, whatever you believe in, and giving yourself permission. Nobody can give it to you. Like, I love working with my clients and I love guiding them back to themselves, but I am not the one who will create it for them. I am not going to be the one that tastes the juiciness of possibilities in their life. They get to feel it. Like, feeling is the key. You get to give yourself the permission. You get to allow it in your life. No one can do it for you. And sometimes, like, listen, sometimes I still do that. And actually, I did it this morning, to be honest. Like, I'm doing something I have never honestly done. So, as I am going through my business and mentorship, I host beautiful retreats and workshops and live events for women. And I love going to live events because it helps me expand. It helps me to check in. It helps me to create something I have never created because I'm in a safe space to create. But ever since I, I went through first pregnancy, I lost it, and now I became mama and have a beautiful, healthy 13-month old baby girl. And every single day I was with her. I was never away from her for like more than a couple hours. But my mentor is hosting a live event in Florida, and when she announced it, I was like, I'm in, I have to be there. It was just this pull, it was my intuition. And then I get into my head, how will I do it? It's, unexpected, like a few thousands of dollars to go for our family. It's putting, like pause on my recordings and my business and I'm coaching. I'm like, can I do that? Will I take my husband? Will I take my mom? And yesterday night, I really tune in. I'm like, I know I'm meant to go. I know I'm resourceful. I know this is going to be expensive. And it's not just about me. It's about my clients and the clients that I will be serving in future. When I expand, my clients always expand. It's a responsibility for me to do that and keep growing and doing it for myself. And I realized it's only 2 days event. And if I would be bringing my little one, there is a time difference. She would be all day on a hotel. I'll just come give her boob. And then she's seeing her mama leaving again. And it's heartbreaking. So I decided again, and I talk about it with my mom, who is here present because, I flew her from Europe to be with us for a few months. I talked to my husband and I'm like, I'm feeling I'm meant to go alone. And it's really hard for me because I've never been away from my baby girl, but I'm feeling I'm meant to go alone. And I'm still breastfeeding her. She gets some snacks here and there. She eats with us. She gets her like fruits, veggies, rice, tofu, and stuff like that. But I'm still breastfeeding her every 2 to 3 hours. And even if she spends the night with my hubby, she has a breastfed milk. And I'm like, how am I going to do this if she's not going with me? So, and this is very personal story. that I'm still processing. So I'm not going to go into details, but I messaged a friend who has a same year old baby girl. I'm like, hey, how did you do it when you're traveling with your baby? Because I know, she had a dip in her supply. So I actually donated my milk to her for 10 months because I, had more than enough. And I'm like, I know you were traveling with the milks. How did you do that? Because I might do it in October when I'm traveling for a couple days and my baby, it's not with me. And I will have to be pumping because I get to keep my milk supply. And she sent me a very long message of like how I will hurt my baby, how I will traumatize my baby by being away from her for 2 days. And I completely sunk. My heart completely sunk. I was asking something else of her, and she gave me unsolicited advice. And I know her heart, and I know she means well, but I was already feeling bad. I already felt like I will miss her like a crazy. I never been away from her. And for those who are listening who are mothers, you get it. For those who are not, it's like leaving one of your limb at home. I was explaining it to my husband. I feel like I'm leaving and I'm leaving my hand home. Piece of me will not be with me and it's hurting. But I know I'm leaving her with my husband who is present with her every day. He's her primary caregiver. But I disconnected from that, like, oh, this feels right to me. I'm excited. And I let someone else influence how I'm feeling and my decisions. So I texted a couple of my other friends. I'm like, can you please hold a space for me? And can I talk to you? So I disconnected from what feels right to me. I trusted someone else for a moment more than myself. And I feel like we so often do that. And you see, like, you look at my past and you think, like, oh, she's so confident. She got it. There's still moments and there are still things that I'm growing through. They're new for me. As a mother and entrepreneur, there are some things that are new for me that I am learning how to lean into my intuition and trust myself more than anyone else. Because every single person will have different opinions, like some of them, like, like, screw it, go, like, when mother is well, the baby is well, and she will be with people who she knows from her birth, her grandma and her dad. She's with her primary caregivers and she will be getting my milk, so it's not like I'm leaving her, but it deeply, like, hurt me, this rising, and I had to work through it. So we all have things we will be still working through and growing through.
Yeah. Mm. Well, I appreciate your deep vulnerability. It's vulnerability and courage go hand in hand, and I honor that very much. And it's so interesting when we communicate with others in regards to one thing, but they come back with a projection of whatever their reality is. And I feel like most people do it coming from a place of care, and they're really wanting to help. And I'm glad, of course, that you have the support to go back and lean into what actually works for you. And I would love to ask you my favorite question, which is, if you could go back in time and give a younger you some words of advice, what would you say, and to what age would you be speaking?
Oh, I love this question. I really wish I could talk to all of them because there is like advice that I would give all of them. And I feel like what I can remember the most. So there are two things that come up for me, and I really want to share that because I know question is asking for one, but there are two that I really feel that deeply define who I am and how I saw myself and the deeper healing that I had to do. The first one, and I see myself as a little baby who is not even walking, who is in a crib, who is crying her lungs out because my mom had the belief, and bless her heart, that's the belief that was in the 80s, that you gotta let the babies cry it out so they fall asleep. And that's how she was putting me to sleep. Just cry it out, she will come down. So, what I would tell that version of me who was so little, you're safe, your mama loves you, you're okay, you're wanted, you're desired, nobody's abandoning you. That's what I would want her to know, to feel safe, to feel suited, to know that, like, mama loves you and mama is right there. She's just learning her own journey. And then the second thing that I would say that really impacted me deeply is when I was around 7 years old, Back in Europe, like in my house, like we would be cleaning the house every rising on Saturday. That's like the cleaning day. We would clean the whole house. And, as a kids, we were doing the chores. I was the older one, and my brother was 5 years younger. So he was 2 years old. And I have this vivid memory of my mom, my dad, and my younger brother watching cartoons, and I had to be cleaning the house. And I made it mean, and I made the story that I'm unlovable and unworthy. Because if I would be lovable, I would be there with them and I wouldn't be punished by doing chores. So for many years to come, and I almost wanted to say decades, I was working really hard to deserve the love, to deserve to be included. And it took me a lot of healing and reprogramming to know it has nothing to do with me, and they didn't mean a harm, and they didn't really mean that I'm unlovable and unworthy. They were just like, like doing their thing, watching cartoons. It's not a big deal. But when you're 7 years old and you feel punished and you feel unlovable, it does create a huge impact. So I would tell her, this doesn't mean anything about you. You're loved, you're worthy. Your parents want you to find a love for the home, find a value, find the independence. They're teaching you good things. When you finish, you can be with them, and they always love you no matter what. You don't have to do hard things to be loved.
Mm, mm. That's so beautiful. Again, just hitting me right at my heartstrings. Oh, I love both of those messages. Well, the floor is yours. If there's anything else you'd like to share before we let everyone know where they can find you and we say bye.
Thank you for giving me the floor. And I feel the last but not least thing that I would love to bring people to is really remembering that you are perfectly made for your purpose. Exactly the way you are, exactly who you are, where you are exactly where you're meant to be. Sometimes we're trying to speed it up, and I feel like we're just being prepared for who we are meant to be and where we are meant to be. So trust it, trust yourself, and trust that you're perfect exactly the way you are, knowing you will always be growing and expanding.
Petya, you are speaking straight to my heart today. Thank you
Mm.
so very much for your time, your attention, your wisdom. And where can everyone find you and your work and your book and your podcast and all the things?
Mm, so my favorite place to hang out is Instagram. It's just my name, Petia Kolibova. I have also backup account Petia Kolibova-Burns, which is our name here. And if there are any mamas listening, I created just for fun account for mamas who are in business called the Holistically Minded Mama. And it's so much fun for me. And it's so beautiful to connect with like minded mompreneurs there. So that and my podcast, Unapologetically Abundant. It's where I have an amazing guest, where I share my stories, how I grow and scale my business. It's just really beautiful place to activate your abundance in your life.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much, my dear, for again just being here and sharing all that you have. I look forward to further connections with you and witnessing you as you grow and expand.
Thank you so much for having me and for creating this beautiful space. I love that.
Hmm